Hi everyone, it's Nicky Jameson here, and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to look at something called, I don't really have a name for it, but we're going to try and create an abstract from using the watercolor brushes and using watercolor paint. So a little while ago I did a very similar painting, abstract painting to this one, but I used the gouache brushes. So we are in Rebelle 6 Pro. I'm going to use Rebelle 6 Pro for this, but instead of using the gouache brushes, I am actually going to use the watercolor brushes, which you can find under watercolor. So if you have Rebelle 6 or 6 Pro, you can access these brushes. So we're going to do something, I don't think it's going to be exactly like this, so I just thought I would show this to you. And then if we have some time, we'll experiment with clipping some elements to the painting. So I'm going to close this now, and I have a layer 1 here and a layer 2. We're going to ignore the layers above my layer 2, and I'm actually going to paint on layer 2. So I have set up my canvas. It's an 8x10 canvas. I've set it at 250 dpi, and hopefully that won't slow down the brushes too much. You can paint at a lower dpi like 75 and then export using the nano exports, which if you have Rebelle Pro 6 Pro rather, you can actually access and use. So what we're going to do, we're going to use selections, we're going to use masking, we're going to limit ourselves to, I hope, a couple, 2 to 3 brushes, and then I'm going to show you how I play with this to come up with some of these abstracts, and then it's up to you to sort of play around and see what you get. So the first thing we're going to do, I am using my Wacom tablet and my art pen. The first thing we're going to do is to go to the selections tool. So in my previous video, I talk a lot about selection tools. This time we're going to do something in the watercolor as opposed to the gouache brushes. And the difference with this painting is that from the gouache one is that I'm going to try and do this on different layers, because that's where you get the most versatility and the most options to use your layers afterwards. So we're just going to create some shapes. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to go to my watercolor brush, and I like to use the bristle brush, but you can play around with these brushes to your heart's content and see which ones work for you. So I'm going to quickly fill this with a color, and as you'll see, because I picked a selection for this shape, so this is actually my first shape, it's going to let me paint within the bounds of that shape. So I can put whatever color I want here. I haven't got a lot of water there, but I want to put some more water because that will help with the flow. And I am also going to wet the layers, wet and dry the layers as I go along, and I'm just really going to not be too prescriptive, but I'm going to play with this because the magic actually happens after you've done your after you've actually painted in your shapes. Okay, so we shall fill this, and I'm going to try and, I don't really like to work too quickly on this, but because it's a video, I will endeavor to go a little bit faster, but not too fast so you can't see what I'm doing. Let's just pick this color here, keep that color. So you'll see, because I've this is a new painting, I have the drip size to 5. I'm going to reduce it to like 4. I'm going to reduce the diffusion speed to 4 because I want to control it. It's great that it's flowing and I want it to flow, but I want to control it a little bit. Now I'm going to hit Control D to get rid of the shape selection marks, and yet here I've got that that shape. So now I'm going to go back to my selection tool. I could do another freehand, I could do a polygon, I could do a circle, but I'm going to pick a square for now. And I'm going to, oh no, I'm not going to do that. This is where I let's Get rid of that, keep our other shape. What I want to do, and what is very important, and how this is different from the last painting, is that I want to add a new layer. Okay, so I painted on layer 2, and now I need to go to, I'm doing layer 3. So this is really key. Remember to add a new layer, because it's very, very easy to just carry on your initial layer. You can actually forget. You don't have to do it all on different layers, but for what I'm going to show you, it's probably the best way to do it. So I'm going to go with a flat dry, and I'm going to pick another color here, and you can see from these watercolor brushes, I'm just going to increase the size a little bit, how lovely these watercolor brushes are. So we're not kind of doing a kind of traditional approach to this. And this is on a, oh, that's very near to the other color. I want to get something different. Let's try this pink. This is on a separate layer, so although it looks like we're painting on our original layer, we are actually on a separate layer. Okay, so now I'm going to do Control D and get rid of those, and get rid of the selection lines. I'm going to add another layer. I call that layer 4, and you can use any of the brushes here. I'm going to go back to bristle. I want to try and limit myself to, let's do another shape, another square or rectangle, and all you need to do is just pull. You can even do it with a mouse, but I use an art pen and a tablet for painting. That's really how you get the best strokes. A mouse is like painting with a bar of soap, in my opinion. So I'm going to hit enter to commit those lines, and I am going to choose another color, maybe a nice dark cobalt blue. And don't forget, I'm going to add quite a bit of water, more than I did in my other one. My other painting was a little bit drier, and I'm going to try and mix up some of the colors here, and they will flow into each other, even though I haven't yet wet the layer. Alright, so, and I love how the texture is flowing through, and you can see now it's starting to flow. I don't have my tilt on, because I want to just work with just the natural flow, not have it going off on its own direction, because that can happen. So we're putting some color here, and now I am going to go to, ooh, I don't want that. Now I'm going to go back to my selections, and I'm going to do a circle this time. And oops, I need to hit Control D to commit, and then I need to go to another layer. Make sure it adds the layer. I think I need to add it with my mouse. So I have another layer here, and I'm going to do a circle this time. Okay, so we are on another layer. Let's put it here, and hit enter, the enter key, and you can use any color that you fancy. I'm going to go for this, perhaps this red. Okay, and what I'm doing with this gives you a lot of freedom painting within a selection, because I can add, you can add in colors that either coordinate. I'm going to add this yellow, and it will the paint will flow and create some nice something really nice. Now what I am going to do in this case, I'm going to just wet the layer. That will wet whichever layer I happen to be on, and you can see it speeds up the diffusion. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and dry the layer. I'm actually going to go to my layer 4, and I'm going to wet that layer. That will also speed up the diffusion a little bit. You can see that this is happening, and I remember to dry the layer afterwards. And if I want to just bring this down a bit and go to layer, let's see, layer 3, my layer 3, and wet that layer, it will encourage a little bit more diffusion. But just remember to dry to dry the layer. And wetting and drying the layer, you can see it's this little looks like a little heater option here. It's a little drop down. Okay, so let's do Control D to commit on layer 5, and let's do one more layer for the moment. I'm gonna play it safe and go for a circle again, the yellow. But I'm not really mixing the colors here, so maybe this. Actually, maybe this. So the colors might not make any sense right now together, but that doesn't really matter. And let's pick. Have we picked this orange? Okay. So the idea is that these paint strokes will flow into each other, and you can always press Alt to sample. Okay, and I'm going to quickly wet that layer and help the diffusion a little bit. Okay, so this paint will flow, and you know what? I can actually even add. Let's dry it. Maybe add some white in there, just for argument's sake. And I'm going to just dry that layer. Right. So now I'm going to hit Control D. So now I've got six layers. Essentially I've got a. I don't want to lock that. I've essentially got a shape on the layers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 shapes here. Typically I will do a few more shapes, but what I'm going to do now, what you can do with this, and why it's so versatile and great to do it on different layers, is that you can click on any of these layers and you can actually reposition them. So if you do Control T, so Control T will move the layer that you happen to be on. In this case, it is layer 2, and that was actually the first shape we did. So if you want to, it wasn't a very big shape, so it's not really showing there. But if you want to move it around or transform it, you can do that. You can make it smaller, bigger, smaller, whatever. And just remember to click OK at the bottom. Okay. So now I'm going to go to layer 2, which is this pink one. And again, I can move this layer around and I can reposition it. If I press Shift and pull down, I can move this around and make it a bigger shape. What I'm also going to do in this case, just for the sake of the demo, is I'm going to click on layer 4, and then do Control T. So again, I can transform this layer and move it around. But what I'm also going to do, after saying OK, I'm going to say OK, because I do this sometimes to just check what layer I am on. I'm actually going to copy this layer, or duplicate this layer, and you want to go to the bottom here where you've got the extra plus sign, right? And that gives me another layer, the same layer but a copy of it. And then if I do Control T again, I can actually move it, and then I have another layer here. Okay, so I'm going to just position that there for now, and you can actually, I should be able to flip this layer, but I'm not going to go into that now, otherwise we'll be here for ages. Just so there. Now, what I'm going to do in this case for this particular one, I'm going to go underneath my layer 1, and I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to use that layer as a background. Now, you can choose whatever color you want for your background, but because I want the background to, I want to constrain the background, so I'm going to go back to my selections, and I'm going to pick the square. So I am on a new layer, but it's behind all of these. Okay, so I'm going to just do this. Now my shapes are a little bit big. Perhaps I should have made them a bit smaller. But then I hit Enter. So on layer 7, which happens to be below layer 2, I am going to maybe pick this, not white, I'm going to pick, if I pick yellow, it might be a bit close. Why don't I pick this blue. I'm not actually sure that blue will work. Okay, grey. Okay, so I'm going to make my brush big, and maybe linear. Let's do linear. Use a brush that comes up big. Make it opaque. And because I've chosen to do this in a selection box, it's going to let me paint within the bounds. Now, I'm actually painting on the layer behind these other layers, but because they are covering it, you can't see it. Okay? But if I should click them on and off, you'll see that I've actually done that. Now, I don't know how well I've done that. I'm sure I've got gaps because I can't actually see what I'm painting. If I want to kind of bring those bounds out a little bit, just do Control T. Let's make it a little bit smaller here, and pull that down a bit to just move it. I typically have a little bit of a bigger margin, but I've made my shapes a little bit big on the large size because I'm videoing it. Okay, so now what we can do, there are many things we can do here. We've got some copies. You can just go through each layer and just decide what you want to do. But what I wanted to show you now was how to create some more interest. Oh, Control D to get rid of that. How to control some more interest in your shapes by using masking. Let's start on one of our more. Let's start on the pink box, which, by the way, I think I will. I'm going to duplicate it. It's actually a nice idea to sort of duplicate and then do Control T, because then you actually have your layer. I'm going to make it smaller, and I'm just going to position it like here, say. Okay, so the copy is above. It's actually above the first layer. Right, so now what I'm going to do, just very quickly, is if you want to, I want to create some, some show through and some interest. I'm going to click on layer 6, and I'm going to do something called add in a mask. So to add a mask, you right click and click add layer mask. And so when you add a layer mask, what you're going to do is you're going to paint in either black paint or white paint, and it will reveal or conceal what's below it. So I'm going to click on black paint here. You need to use something like maybe a pastel brush or an airbrush, or even I wouldn't use a marker because it's liquid. So I'm going to go for a dry pastel brush. Let's just go for the pastel dry. It's a fairly small brush, but you can just play around with it. And then what I'm with my with black paint, I'm just going to gently, let's make this a little bit bigger, gently kind of paint. Literally, I'm just literally painting on this shape. So it's the sort of egg shape. And you can see the mask the black paint will appear on the mask. And depending on how hard you press, oops, I don't really want that pink to, I didn't want to go that far. I am actually masking this into a shape. It's a little bit confusing, but the more you practice it, the more you'll get the idea. Now, let's do this on another layer, and then I'll tell you how to actually reverse that if you want. Let's just remove that. So I'm revealing the pink below, and I'm masking the brown. So it's okay. Just painting over that, and it's going to reveal what is there. You can soften it. You can actually do the same with an eraser, but an eraser is a little bit harsher. But really, what you're doing is you can actually remove a lot of your original shape. Okay. Now, let's say I want to do that on another layer. Let's use our layer 3. So I'm going to do the same thing, right click with my mouse, add layer mask, and it will add this white box. I forgot to say that. I hope you can see that. It will add this white box by the side. You need to make sure you're painting on the layer mask and not the actual painting. Okay? So I'm going to choose a dry pastel. You can use the same brush, it doesn't really matter. and I'm going to, ooh, depending on how opaque you want to make it. All right, you can lower the opacity, it gives you a little bit more control. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm revealing what's below. Okay. So, and you don't have to do it at the edge. You can, wherever it is you're literally painting, and you're painting. Remember, you're painting in black. Okay, so that's going to give you some interesting shape or interesting textured edges, so you don't have such a hard edge if you don't want one. And the bigger you make your brush, the softer your reveal will be. Okay, so this is what you're doing here. Now, if you don't like what you've done and you want to reverse it, all you do is that you, instead of painting in black, you paint in white, and white will cover up. It will bring back what you have painted out. So if you're watching what I'm doing here, I'm painting that pink back in. I'm still on my layer mask, but basically I'm reversing what I did. Okay, and if I go back to my top layer here, on layer 6, and paint on the layer mask there, and I'm painting in white. Make sure you're painting in white. I can actually put back most of that color. Let's choose I think sometimes the brush you use makes a bit of a difference. You need to make sure you're there. You can paint it back in black to reveal or conceal. Okay, so this is me painting in black. I should be on the right layer, on the layer mask, and then you can reveal. It's harder when you're doing it with colors, but that's why the white is showing here, because I'm revealing it. Okay, I'm hiding the top layer and I'm revealing the bottom layer. Okay, so that is, we can do more on layer masks later. The other thing you can do, this video is already fairly long now, but the other thing you can do is to change blend mode. This one is overlay. Okay, so you get a different feel there, or you can add, you can change it to soft light. And if I go to my layer 1 copy, which is this pink one, and change that to, let's try overlay, I can get a nice effect there. If I don't like overlay, I can try color burn as another favorite one. Get a really dark color there. You can also reduce the opacity so that it's not as overpowering. And then I can go to my layer 2. I'm not going in any particular order, but on layer 2, that is the layer below the first layer. Let's set it to linear burn and reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, but you can see, if I do Control T, you can see that I've actually really changed the color there, and with the masking, it's actually given a very interesting feel that you want. An interesting outcome. I haven't done anything with this layer 5. I would probably change that to maybe overlay, and then Control T, and move it around and just create a nice abstract shape with that. Don't forget to say OK after you've done a transformation to commit it. You can also use drips, and you can use all manner of painting. And the last thing I wanted to show you before I end this video is that you can also clip shapes to your painting. So I brought in this gold leaf, okay, and if I do Control T, I can move it around. It's on its own layer, okay, but I can clip. You can actually keep it on here and add it, or you can actually, let me see if I can do this. Let's bring it down here and do clipping mask. Oh, it disappears. Well, it's clipped it to here and it's kind of disappeared. I don't really want it to disappear like that, so I'm going to do, I'm going to undo that. And the trick is, what you do is that you want to find where you can clip it to, so that you actually get it clipped to a shape on the layer. So I'm thinking I might clip it to maybe layer 4. Let's do clipping mask. Yeah, so you can see a bit of it. I kind of like it to show, so I'm going to release that clipping mask. You can just simply move it between the layers and see where you get the best view. You know, you don't have to clip it, but it's just an option for you if you want to sort of create a little bit more interest. Okay, and you know, just move this within and you get something really nice, or you know, something interesting and different in terms of an abstract. So you can bring in as many as you want and add as many as you want. So I have another one here which I will just bring down. I think it's this one. Just be careful you don't lose your where you are in your layer stack. Okay, so if you go Control T, and there I can move this around. It's actually probably more effective doing it this way than just trying to clip it. But you can only do this if you have things on separate layers. Okay, so this has been a little bit of a longer video. I hope you've learned something. Again, what we have done is that we've created an abstract and we've used blend modes and we've created the shapes on different layers using the selection tool and used this to create a different looking abstract. And we've also brought in some elements, some gold elements to increase the interest in the abstract. Thanks for watching this video. Appreciate your time. Perhaps I'll see you in another video. Take care.